Thank you, Steve, and good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Bureau of Justice Assistance and Office of Justice Programs, particularly Kristen Mahoney and Director Denise O'Donnell, it's my pleasure to be here today. Director O'Donnell is welcoming a new grandchild this week, so she is away from the office, and Kristen is holding the fort down. Let me ask if Hassan Dowdy is in the room. Hassan is one of our new team members. If he arrives later, I'll give a little introduction, but I want to take the opportunity to introduce Hassan. Really, it is indeed my pleasure to be able to provide a BJA update for you today. And if there was a theme, it would really be the importance of partnerships, and I want to highlight the value of the work that we do. And then I'm going to do that in two ways. One, I want to recap some sample program successes and results, and then look to the future, particularly looking at justice reinvestment, reentry, as well as a little bit of a PDMP, prescription drug monitoring case study. So I hope you enjoy this. Highlight the value of our work. Assistant Attorney General Carol Mason has been hosting some town hall meetings, both with partners and internal at OJP. And I just happened to, she hosted one yesterday for staff, and she started her comments by talking about, she described OJP in her mind as the crown jewel of the Department of Justice. Now, granted, she might be a little biased because she oversees that work, but she emphasized that OJP is very unique in really concentrating our efforts to support local, state, tribal, and territorial jurisdictions because we change people's lives. Now, that's not to say other OJP components don't do important work, but that day-to-day interaction and support actually changing people's lives. She went on to say OJP is the heart and soul of creative solutions, not funding. Together with our partners, we are indeed the ideas people and solutions people. So given the economic challenges, our goals really remain the same. Ensure our programs are valued, treasured, and well-funded, and ensure Congress understands OJP's mission. It's interesting to note, and I'm going to talk about budget a little bit. Some of you may have looked at the budget, know that it is close. We hope it's going to be voted on tomorrow, I believe, is the last I heard. But JJ funding dropped about $11 million, and that was raised in this discussion, and it posed why are some project areas holding their own, maybe making some small incremental advances, and then others find a little bit more difficult to struggle. I did see Hassan duck in. Hassan, are you still with us here? Hassan, please stand up. I just want to introduce you. Hassan is our newest team member at the Justice Information Sharing Team at BJA. Hassan comes to us with over 12 years of experience working in the public and private sector, particularly with enterprise architecture, information technology, strategy development. He holds degrees from Duke. Yes, I now have two Blue Devils on my team. I don't know how. I'm from Indiana, so we got a little friction here. But he did go on to the University of California and holds a PhD. So we're very glad to have Hassan. And please, if you get a chance this morning, introduce yourself, make him feel welcome. So back to JJ, some areas are struggling where others are kind of trying to do their best to hold their own. So we'll get back to that. Let me recap some sample program successes and results. And some of these you're going to be familiar with, and some of the actual sponsors are here in the room. So I'm going to be talking about some of you. Some of the following items I'm going to talk about are examples of global reference architecture implementation. We all know Interstate Compact Offender Tracking System took advantage of GRA. The Sex Offender Relocation Notification Act, SORNA, or what we call the Drew Shadeen Sex Offender Registry in its early days, was one of the first implementers that took advantage of this work. The state of Maine, anybody here from Maine? Okay, the state of Maine did some really good work working with Search and our other partners, where they provided a solution in the past year or so that met both the requirements for Maine State Police and local police, as well as the District Attorney Association. They did a dual solution that saved tons of money. They did that by recognizing the commonalities between those two projects. Hampden County, Massachusetts, you may hear about that later if you haven't already heard about it, but the reentry support, I know some people are here in the room. We've seen some great work with minimal investment to really help these, us to be able to share critical information before an incarcerated subject is released so that he can have services provided, job placement, mental health, other services to give that person the best chance to be successful in their reentry. I don't need to say reentry is indeed an item we're going to see and feel the impact of a lot more in the coming years. Both sides of the aisle in Congress support it, and many states are grappling with how to take advantage, and the information sharing piece is absolutely critical. The Indiana Data Exchange Project, I'm sure you've seen some things that might even be on the IJIS website, but in Indiana, they used the GFIPM and NEAM frameworks and did an overhaul so that they had the planning design to really support information sharing using these new concepts. It's interesting to note that was funded by the Department of Homeland Security. So it's great to see non-justice and other sources support these programs. Connect South Dakota, I won't go into it, but they used some modest resources to really connect the entire state and support information sharing between law enforcement as well as jail management and corrections, RMS. This one is one of my, I shouldn't say favorites, I shouldn't hold favorites out, but I know Pam Scanlon's in the audience, and the work she's done with IJIS and the Sworn Project are just so easy to recognize. I don't know if Pam is going to be speaking here this week, but in a nutshell, what IJIS did, they enabled the sharing of critical information between law enforcement and corrections in real time so that alerts could be given back and forth when folks were released. And this even came to the point where if an officer pulled over a subject or had contact with a subject and had reason to question their identity, they actually would say, well, do you mind, let me take a quick picture with their, I think they have, Pam, where are you? She stepped out. Okay, she stepped out. They had, it wasn't an iPad, it wasn't an iPhone. Help me? Android, thank you. But literally within seconds, it would cross-match the photograph of the person with mugshots and give an actual match, an identity. And there were more than one occasions where the suspect or the person would say, yeah, that's me. Wow, how did you do that so fast? But this has helped them identify and capture folks that had arrest warrants as well as other critical information. Again, kind of saving lives. She has a slide deck that is very impressive and talks about those real-world impacts. Other things I won't go into, but the Nationwide Suspicious Activity Reporting Initiative, NSI, leveraged GRA. New Jersey continues to do work in this area. Justice to Health Exchanges, IJIS is still working with us to help improve that capability. Maris, I know there are some folks here from the Mid-Atlantic Regional Information Sharing work. Hawaii Juvenile Justice Information Sharing. Saginaw County, Michigan is on deck. South Dakota, Savin System, Virginia, Rhode Island, and many more. Savin in particular, I'm going to talk about it in a little bit, but Montana has done some great work with IJIS support through the Savin service specification, which is relatively new, that again is enabling states to share information among providers and giving states flexibility to provide those services to victims in a more economical and more efficient manner. So we're particularly pleased to see the partnerships that we've been working in that area. Let me talk a little bit about RIS. RIS continues to be a very regional information sharing system, our partners. But just yesterday I was given an update that via a recent RIS and Index partnership today, live in Colorado, RIS users can access Index and make queries automatically solely through their RIS credentials. I want to give kudos particularly to Julie Humphreys and her team at RIS in Tennessee, David Pennypacker at IJIS, and Dave Lewis at BJA. But this is a real example of how Global Federated Identity and Privilege Management can help us be more efficient, avoid multiple logins. I mean, we know from the field that that's one of the crazy things that bothers people, that they have to log in so many times to check resources. Global Strategic Solutions Working Group is relatively new to BJA and Global, but it represents kind of a different focus. This is a little bit of a look ahead of really identifying in tandem with the field and BJA and from Global itself, what are some priority issues, some stumbling blocks that can be addressed in as short a time as possible. And I know we have several Global members here today, and you may hear about some of those activities, but surprisingly, they're much of what I'm talking about today. Prescription drug monitoring, reentry, post-Boston bombings, the whole area of how do we better prepare agencies in advance, during, and after to share critical video and other evidence that may be held in businesses in the private sector. A lot of work with the FBI and a lot of good work's happening in that arena. So let me talk a little bit more about look to the future, budget. Well, there's some good news. Justice Reinvestment, JRI, which again is very closely tied to reentry. Justice Reinvestment, Texas, several states have done kind of premier work in this arena where they have worked with the Pew Foundation and with BJA to change legislation and improve releasing folks that have not committed violent crime, and then free up that bed space, take that funding and reinvest it back into the justice system to help in other areas. So that has moved from $6 million to $27.5 million in 2014. So that's going to be an area where you may be interested. NICS, the Bureau of Justice Statistics, NICS program gained $18 million. So in 2014, it'll be up to $59 million. PDMP, prescription drug monitoring, stayed the same at $7 million. Now the not so good news. Burn competitive national initiatives dropped from 18 million to 13.5 million. Now that's the small kind of reserve funding that our office and others use to do innovative projects, training and technical assistance, and those activities. So that's going to be a challenge this year. And then JAG dropped from 392 million to 376 million. A drop but something that hopefully we can hang in there with the states. Let me give you a little bit of a PDMP case study, and then if there are any questions, I'll be glad to take those. Prescription drug monitoring, everybody's been reading about it in the newspapers. The problem really about prescription drug-related overdoses began to be visible in about 2000. The number of overdose deaths per year involving pain relievers increased more than fourfold between 1999 and 2010, from about 4,000 to over 16,000, outnumbering overdose deaths involving all illicit drugs combined. Sales of opioid pain relievers have also increased fourfold since 1999. A few interesting facts. America constitutes only 4.6% of the world's population, but consumes 80% of the global opioid supply and 99% of the global hydrocodone supply. The annual cost to health insurers derived from non-medical use of prescription pain medications is approximately $72.5 billion. PDMPs are recognized as an effective tool to help curb this abuse and misuse of diversion or controlled substances. The first PDMP actually was started in California in 1943. Today we have 49 states and 1 U.S. territory authorizing PDMP legislation. All states but Missouri allow access to their data by authorized users. This is a typical of other complex programs that we have that have complex issues. A lot of the state legislation dealing with PDMP has restrictions, and in some states, they have a PDMP and they have PDMP database, but legally no one's allowed to analyze it and share that information. So there are some challenges. However, the access of law enforcement agencies to this PDMP data is saving countless lives and helping with hours of investigations. Let me talk about an Indiana case study. I happen to have a colleague from my Indiana State Police days, did a lot of undercover work throughout his career. And today he is the Deputy Director of the Medicaid Fraud Unit under the Indiana Attorney General's office. And I was talking with Tim McClure a few weeks ago on another matter, and we somehow got to talking about PDMP, and so our lives kind of intertwined once again. But he shared that the Attorney General is playing a pretty active role in Indiana addressing this issue. And they've been leveraging INSPECT data, that's the Indiana Scheduled Prescription Collection and Tracking, PDMP data, during a 4-year period involving 60 Medicaid fraud investigations. Again, I'm just talking about Medicaid fraud investigations, not other kind of bad doctor, other things in Indiana. But they related just those Medicaid fraud investigations resulted in over 200 overdose deaths in Indiana. Prescription drug abusers frequently strive to induce a heroin-like high by combining drugs to form a cocktail known as on the street as the Holy Trinity. So they mix opiates, benzodiazepines, and enhancers like muscle relaxers. Nearly 95% of overdose deaths involve a combination of drugs taken by users who seek an extreme high. Investigation in Indiana of just one doctor revealed he wrote more than 78,000 prescriptions in a 4-year period. It maxed out an Excel spreadsheet. This equals more than 53 controlled substance prescriptions written every day of the week for 4 years. And it's worth noting, this physician wasn't a specialist or a pain doctor. He was just a general practitioner. Prescription drug monitoring, some of the good news we have on this front, working with IJIS and our other partners, we have developed a PIMIX, prescription drug monitoring exchange architecture. and it is providing the national interoperability, specifications, reusable infrastructure for secure, reliable, and sustainable interstate exchange among state PDMP providers. It's employed by the existing 3 hubs today, and there are 23 states sharing data with other states. This is clearly the role we are designed to help play. Reentry, just again, it's a hot item we're going to be continuing to support. But let me, in the realm of evidence-based practices, another key theme that we're going to see with OJP and really across federal government in the years to come, a few results from BJA's Smart Policing Initiative. In Baltimore, and what we've done in this case, this is our law enforcement team, they have matched funding to go to a city to help solve a critical crime problem. But they've linked a university or someone who can actually help with the research, monitor, form performance measures, et cetera. In Baltimore, Maryland, SPI, that's the Smart Policing Initiative, was involved in a gun violence reduction strategy. It resulted in 15%, hold on one second here, reductions of 27% in homicides, 15% in non-fatal shootings, and 18% reduction in a version of those 2 outcomes. A 40% reduction in non-fatal shooting incidents. Los Angeles, California, the Newton Division, persistently one of the most violent divisions in LA, ended 2012 with an all-time low of 16 homicides. This was a 56% decrease compared to 2011 and a 59% decrease compared to 2010. Let me wrap up and just say, clearly partnerships and the value of our work affecting people's lives is why I still get up out of bed every morning and am enthused to go to work and work with people like our friends with the IJIS Institute and others. I can't think, I was reading a little leadership summary recently, and it said basically leadership is about influence, nothing more, nothing less. And I couldn't help but think of the Badge and Tech Awards and Benefit Program, where we'll be honoring a very worthy individual this evening. So I do need to leave a little bit before lunch to attend a webinar. It's actually on the National Institute of Justice, their research proposal, or their research that derived from Savin. There are over 750 participants worldwide, and they have about a dozen countries that are dialing in to that webinar today. But I'm going to be back later this afternoon, and I'll be with you tonight. Thank you for your time. God bless.